Hello and welcome to All Hands on Tech, where today's leaders talk tomorrow's technology. I'm Jeremy Morgan. Artificial intelligence is an exciting new field that's changing the way we do business, and frankly, changing the world around us. Today I'm excited to be talking with Jaekob Chenina. He's leading project management using AI at Oracle, and he's one of the leaders in AI today. We will talk about AI, machine learning, and how he's using it every day. So, how are you today?
Doing great.
Awesome. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Jaekob Chenina, and right now I am leading product management and AI for a suite of marketing apps in the Oracle Marketing Cloud. I'm a product manager that's what my official title is, but I'm a bit of a hybrid in the sense that I used to work as a data scientist, and I still am very hands-on. I still code and do just always staying up to date with the latest and greatest of machine learning and AI technologies. I spent some time in a PhD program. I see a ton of value in that's maybe something I'll share more thoughts on later on. And just what is the right career for someone that wants to be in the machine learning and AI space. But before Oracle, I was at Adobe, and before Adobe, I was an entrepreneur making my own machine learning AI startup. I just built some algorithms as the founding data scientist myself, and then built a team around that, and got some high-profile customers and some venture interest there as well. And before that, I was just working as a data scientist at a fintech company in the Bay Area. So kind of the way I describe myself now is just a creator of intelligent products. Since I have that hybrid background, I see a lot of value in, not just approaching things from the vantage point of, hey, this is how the algorithms work, or hey, this is how the business strategy works. But I've become a firm believer that to have the best success with AI, you really need all of these respective disciplines to unify, to come together in one cohesive team.
Awesome. So how are you drawn to AI and machine learning as a technology?
I was drawn to machine learning because it gives you a big picture of how people think and what motivates them. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I've got several uncles, all of which have started many of which have started successful ventures. And what I learned from observing my uncles is that a successful business needs to solve a meaningful problem for a customer, a consumer. And so in my computer science program, back in my bachelor's program, I stumbled upon this big data class, and I was analyzing millions of records of Netflix data, and I was finding patterns in the data of when people watch movies, what their preferences are, and finding patterns in there. And to me, it was just an eye-opening experience that big data, data science, machine learning, all of these tools are a tremendous asset, an incredibly powerful tool for understanding customers, their preferences, so that you can use that as a tool to create new business opportunity and new products.
Nice. So is this something that you've always wanted to do? Have you always kind of been interested in data itself, or was it that class that really kind of piqued your interest?
Yeah, it was really that class that got me started. I never thought of myself being in this type of space early on. I come from a family where both of my parents have strong humanities backgrounds, and I was drawn to what my uncles were doing on the entrepreneurship side and tech side, but really saw myself being more of a foreign service officer. I speak several different languages, but yeah, I stumbled upon this, it's computer science, and just really connected with it, and especially the machine learning and AI side, and found myself in that to be an AI and data science innovator.
What do you think prepared you best for being so good at what you do now?
I think that what makes me unique and my unique asset that I bring to my profession and to the thought leadership that I do on this topic. I do webinars and I have quite a few online courses with different platforms, and I think that the value that my expertise has is in having this multifaceted background. I did a startup. Lots of data scientists, they have that advanced education, which is very valuable. But I made friends with some people in a recruiting staffing firm that specializes in data science hiring. And I asked them, like, what is the most difficult role to hire for in terms of this data science recruiting that you have? Is it just, data scientists, or is it data analysts, data engineers, machine learning engineers, people with more of a strategy focus? And what they said is like, yeah, those, there's challenges with hiring for each of those roles. But the role that we have the most difficulty hiring for is people that understand both business and machine learning and AI. Because people tend to be in one camp or the other, especially given that data science is lots of this data science innovations are fairly new. So it just simply hasn't given people a lot of time to acquire some of those very new skill sets. But that's where there's a big need, and a big need in the marketplace in general. I simply see lots of companies recognizing, hey, we need data scientists. There's such a huge opportunity with AI. They're reading Forbes articles from The Economist that say 40% of jobs can be automated away using AI. So let's hire some data scientists and let's make this AI happen. Let's make it a reality. But I see so many data scientists that are really just frustrated, that are struggling at different companies because they bring on a data scientist, one or two data scientists, maybe they hire three of them, and they say, okay, now you go make the AI happen. And they have whatever data is in the database. They're trying to work with that. They're trying to brainstorm use cases. And they simply might not have a lot of training on thinking through strategic roadmaps, thinking about what the customer problems are. To start out with, a lot of the best, every successful AI product feature solves a meaningful customer problem. And in product development, we know very well that if you start with the customer's problem as your primary focus, that's really where you have the best products. And if you start with the technology and say, okay, here's a cool technology, I want to use it. Where can I use this hammer? Where can I use this saw? You end up building a much less focused, cohesive, valuable structure or building. To use this construction analogy, like, oh, I have this jackhammer. I need to use this. If you take a step back and think about not what does the jackhammer need, but what does the person that's going to live in this house need, it has such a huge impact on nearly every user experience design decision and even algorithmic design. Just one thing, while I'm just on this, I just have to say that one misconception that people have on this topic is that they think that machine learning and AI is something that totally just happens behind the scenes. They say, okay, you guys are going to be behind the scenes. You guys do your stuff. But as I have built machine learning features at Adobe, for example, we were working on building a recommendation system that recommends data insights. So if you think of a data analyst, they've got so much data, they don't even have time to look at it all. And so if you've got a dashboard, the kind of Netflix style, is like, hey, here, check it out. Like, here's, based on your data browsing histories, this is something we think you should check out. That's basically the feature that I was working on. It's called Intelligent Alerts. And for that feature, I learned that there's so much that needs to happen, even in the user experience. And if I would have approached that with just my data scientists and, okay, here's the algorithm, tweak the algorithm, we were making changes to the algorithm that affect the user experience, and we were making tweaks to the user experience that affect the algorithm. And so when it comes to putting together a strong team for building AI features, one really important thing to keep in mind is that it needs to be full stack. However, in many companies, they've got the data scientists working in kind of a silo behind the scenes, and then they finally put together a proof of concept after 6 months of tweaking an algorithm and scrounging up whatever limited data they have access to. And then finally the product engineering team starts building out a UI for it. And then they realize, okay, now the algorithm needs to change. And that kicks off another 3 or 4 month cycle while they tweak that based on what they learned building the user interface. And it's sort of a staggered back and forth process. Many companies, it takes them a year, sometimes several years just to build a single machine learning AI feature. And my message to the world is that it doesn't have to be that way. It can be so much faster. Marty Kagan is a big thought leader in product management and just product development in general. I've attended one of his workshops, and he has this very, very simple principle that many companies that we're learning applies to data science and AI. And I don't see that this has fully been adopted across the industry, especially when it comes to data science and AI, is that you should build collaboratively and not sequentially. Instead of having a product person say, hey, here are the requirements, and then you data science people go and execute on it. If you get together in a room, think like in a design sprint type of setting, and you might not even, for whatever your machine learning AI use cases you're thinking of, you might not even have the data available to you. And so you've got to create a UI so that you can start getting some sort of user input and just start doing it as a collaboration. It goes so much faster. It's so much more focused on real customer needs. And you can actually have this massive impact with AI that some people say is hype. But if you really get the right process in place, and if you get the right team in place and you collaborate and you have a solid strategy, a keen customer focus, and the algorithms have the ability to function in an agile fashion instead of 6 months of optimization, but just to make those tweaks more dynamically, you really can have a massive impact with AI.
So last probably 10, 15 years, I know that in the beginning with data, the challenges were gathering the data. How are we going to get this data? And then, of course, how are we going to store it? Where are we going to store it? And it seems like most of those problems have been solved fairly well, like in the last 10 years or so, to where we're able to grab the data that we want. We're able to store it efficiently and retrieve it. But now the challenge is, what data do we retrieve and why? Do you think that's probably the biggest challenge right now is what do we do with all this data now that we have this big pile of it?
Yes, I definitely agree with what you've said. Many companies have prioritized making a data lake, but just getting everything in a data lake is just one step of the process. And the next step of the process is to get that data into the right format. I tell lots of people that what they can do is, rather than building machine learning features one by one, that you can actually find a ton of overlap from, if you make a roadmap of, let's say, here's 5 different data science features, you might find that 5 of those of those 5 features, 3 of them have the same machine learning algorithm behind the scenes. And so if you can sort of reverse engineer what you need in order to, what data you need and what format that data needs to be in, you can make a lot smarter prioritization decisions to get your data science features out of the door.
And so how are people using AI right now to improve people's lives? Like, what's your favorite AI story?
So in terms of a data science feature that I love looking at call centers. The call center use case is very interesting to me because when you look at what happens inside of a call center, there's so much things that happen that are very repetitive, that are very predictable, and that can be automated with AI. There's lots of different companies that are going after this. But kind of to generalize this, I see that wherever there's sort of repetitive steps that are happening over and over again, that's really where you can see AI, an opportunity for AI. What AI does not do as well, on the other hand, is AI is not so good at things that are creative, analytical, where you're dealing with complexity and creativity or relationship building. Machine learning algorithms are simply not as good at building trust and that sort of person-to-person connections. But lots of people wonder, okay, there's lots of repetitive things that are happening. For example, at the grocery store, is that something that can be really automated with AI? And if you set out trying to create some sort of robot that goes and restocks the shelves, it seems like a pretty challenging thing to do with AI. But this is why you don't have to think about AI in such a limited fashion of, hey, I'm going to try to get AI to do exactly what a human does. In that sense, you need to appreciate what a robot does and what a human does well. And what they do is different. You may not be able to create a robot that goes and restocks the shelves so effectively, but you could create an entirely different system from scratch where, for example, instead of having a robot try to copy what a human does, exactly the way a human does, just have some sort of system, kind of like like think of a vending machine system where there's sort of a conveyor belt behind in the refrigerated area that automatically restocks the shelves automatically and has sensors. That's completely doable. It may not, and it may involve some level of machine learning and maybe even not. But when you look at these estimates from the economists and other researchers that 40% of jobs can be automated using technology and AI, some people say that's hype. There's no way that can happen. I actually think that those estimates are right on, and maybe even more than 40% of jobs. Maybe as much as 50% or 60% of jobs could be automated using AI. But you would need to do it with the context of, hey, I'm not going to try to replace exactly what a human does, but it would require you to approach it from the context of, hey, I'm going to design a completely new system. And tying this into where data scientists are frustrated today is that many data scientists, if you're in the development organization, you're one or two data scientists, and they say, hey, go make AI happen for this grocery store or for whatever your industry vertical is, you simply may not be equipped as a solo data scientist to go and redesign the entire shelving and restocking system. It's simply something that's not in your purview as someone who has access to the database and is trying to create some sort of model. As you can see for this example, it's something that it impacts your entire business strategy. It's something that impacts HR. Like, what are you going to, once you create this restocking, reshelving system, what are you going to do with all those people that you were previously paying to manually reshelve the systems? That's simply not something, the decisions that are within the purview of a single data scientist. And so, just to kind of reiterate my message here again, if you want to have success with AI, you can't just leave it up to a handful of data scientists. They're going to be believers themselves that there's so much opportunity, but somehow that opportunity just escapes them and they end up working with whatever data is in the database. And maybe that data in the database is not even the data that they need. Maybe they need to create a new data set. Maybe they need to install cameras and manually build a new data set from scratch. But if you start with the data set first, you're not going to get over that cold start problem. This is a term that comes from machine learning and AI. It's called the cold start problem. And basically the problem is you don't have the data that you need. I would say this cold start problem is a huge obstacle for many data scientists, is that, oh yeah, in theory, there could be this awesome use case of this automatic restocking system or an e-learning, some sort of some consultant that gives you guidance for Pluralsight and which courses you should look at. They simply might not have the data of a consultant advising a learner on which courses in Pluralsight they should be looking at. And so since they don't have that data set, they can't start building a model around that. And so it just stops there. So this is another piece of guidance that I give to data scientists is don't start with the data. And this applies for AI development teams overall. Don't just start with the data. Start with the big picture. You need a vision. You need a strategy. You need to envision a whole new system, a whole new possibility that does not currently exist. And if you start with that big picture, and that means you're going to need product managers, that means you're going to need UX designers, that means you're going to need Java developers. It means you're going to need data engineers that are really good at using Kafka and Hadoop, but not necessarily the modeling. You need a very diverse team to envision new possibilities with AI and collaborate and execute as a team to make the future of AI happen.
I talked with Jordan Morrow on a previous podcast about data literacy. That's kind of what you're saying in a different way also is focusing on the problem and knowing what to look for as opposed to just, you've got this big pile of data. Let's see what we can do with this hammer. Do you think that data literacy is a big part of that before you even start the project?
Yes, absolutely. I think that one obstacle is that a lot of people that are envisioning new product opportunities, they simply might not be the data scientists. So there's the data scientists that don't fully have the training in the business strategy. And then there's people that are trained in business strategy, but they don't have the data literacy, as you put it. And if you don't have the data literacy, they might simply envision things that are simply impossible, things that you can't do well with AI and machine learning. And what a lot of those things that are being envisioned are, as I said, people trying to replicate exactly what a human does, which is not so effective. But if you understand machine learning, if you have data literacy, if you understand what it's possible of doing and what it's not possible of doing, it empowers you to envision a new strategy, a new product that is a lot more feasible given the constraints of what AI can and cannot do. And so many companies are recognizing this, and they're rolling out training programs in machine learning and AI for executive leadership, for people that are in strategy roles, for people that are in product management roles. When I was at Adobe, we also had a training program where we were training lots of the developers in machine learning and AI. We were partnering with different training programs similar to Pluralsight. But then what we saw is that there was not this all of a sudden a massive uptick in the roadmap of building the machine learning and AI features until we started creating more training programs for the people that were in the strategic roles of the organization. And once we started providing more training on machine learning and AI and data literacy to people in strategy functions, then it gave a lot more mutual understanding. I also see, once again, the reverse. The reverse is providing strategy training to data scientists. We often don't think of providing training on business strategy to technical folks like the data scientists. But if I think of the human beings in general, I think there's these people like these inventors from the Renaissance period that we often romanticize, and how a Renaissance man or woman is someone who understands creativity, someone who understands engineering, very diverse people. I personally am of the perspective that humans are smart, every single one of us, and we have the potential to not be as narrow as we might think of ourselves as. And I think that every single one of us has the potential to be a Renaissance man and a Renaissance woman. And if you have these data scientists and you train them in customer empathy, I know that at companies like Facebook, for example, when they hire data scientists, nearly half of their evaluation criteria is customer empathy and product intuition. That's nearly half of what they're looking for in hiring a data scientist. And when they hire product managers, they also look for people that have nearly half of their criteria is, being able to understand complex technical issues. So I think leading companies like Facebook, I really like how they do things because they understand this concept of Renaissance men and Renaissance women. And I think that when you have a Renaissance mentality that everyone is empowered as you have empathy and understanding for each other's roles, then it empowers the team to, you don't have to be the data scientist, but just having at least some level of education, you can work cohesively as a system so much more effectively. And that's what I absolutely love about Pluralsight. I love what you're doing, Jeremy. I love what your company does because you empower people, business people to understand technology. There's courses in Pluralsight that are for business leaders and for technical folks to understand data science. And there's also courses in Pluralsight that I've seen that are for engineers to understand UX design and so forth. So just kudos to you, Jeremy, and to Pluralsight in general for being one of the most incredible, impactful organizations for unlocking the human race's potential to become creators and to be Renaissance men and women.
Thank you. And I do see that over time, in my career, I had a career in engineering previously, and it was very siloed to where, you're an engineer and then this person is in sales and this person is everybody had their silos. And I've noticed that over the years, they're kind of breaking those silos down. And do you see that happening in AI and ML now to where there is a lot of overlap there? Like you're saying, a CIO can be a CIO and he or she knows that job very well from, years of experience and what they're doing. But would they find a lot of value in learning AI and ML just to have a little bit of that overlap with some of their data scientists?
Absolutely. When you look at the landscape, I see more and more companies recognizing this as a gap, and they're providing AI, different types of trainings for people to acquire this type of a hybrid skill set. But also on the flip side, I'll say that it's been fairly slow. AI really started to take off in 2013, around the time that some researchers in one of the universities, they started programming deep neural networks on GPUs. And once that happened, it just unlocked so many more deep learning use cases with such a much higher predictive accuracy than any other machine learning algorithms were able to do previously. And that's really where so much investment has gone into this. But I think I'm beating this drum that, hey, we need more Renaissance men and women. We need more people more collaboration. And I still think it'll take decades. I think it'll take a long time. I'd say, so to answer your question, I definitely see movement going in that direction. But I still lots of siloed activities. And I think you and I are here to help break those silos down.
Oh, we're going to try. What advice would you give someone that wants to learn about AI or ML?
I would say that hands-on experience is one of the most valuable things. When it comes to getting into machine learning and AI, when I was earlier in my career, I built a website with sort of a mini portfolio. It actually didn't take me much time at all. It was a portfolio. Adobe has this product called portfolio.com or something like that. And I built, just threw some pictures of some different data visualizations that I put there, some different models. And when I was on the job market, this is actually when I was coming out of school, I had so many people that were recruiters. It was like, hey, where's your portfolio? Hey, where's your portfolio? Hey, where's your portfolio? Because you can put something on one bullet point here or there on your resume, and it may or may not catch the hiring team's committee, but just being able to showcase visually what you have done is very appealing to recruiters. So I definitely see value also in doing different certification programs, but you look at humans and we're naturally visually oriented beings. I remember that in my graduate research, we were looking at data visualizations. And if you look at a three-dimensional data visualization, like a 3D histogram versus a 2D histogram, the research shows that people remember the 3D histogram a lot more than the 2D histogram. That was so puzzling and fascinating to me. And as I've pondered that concept, I've just kind of more broadly come to the conclusion that humans are visual beings and we reason in things in visual ways. So the more you can give people visuals to help them imagine and see your skill sets is a great way of showcasing your skills. Also, if you've built a little data science product, you can show some UX designs. But I see recruiters valuing hands-on projects, even side projects, more than just bullet points on a resume. So that would be my number one recommendation.
Okay, so yeah, it's like going to a cloud service. I know that Google, AWS, and Azure all have some sort of machine learning or visual thing where you can upload pictures and train it to do different things. So would you recommend that step as being better than, going out and learning R or Python or something just to get started and to keep yourself interested? Use something like one of those cloud services?
Yeah, those cloud services are fantastic. And to answer that question on making comparisons of using R, learning a programming language, or studying something else, I think it's about this lean startup concept. Do whatever for you is a viable end-to-end solution. And if you think about machine learning in its simplest form, if you just take some data, maybe some transactional data, just say, hey, here's some purchases from the purchase in my purchase database. You download that, put it in Excel. That's something that anyone can do. And within Excel natively, you can make a linear regression or a logistic regression that has some predictive capabilities. You can watch some YouTube videos on how to do that, or just follow some instructions. Within 5 steps, within 30 minutes or an hour, you can do something like that. And that's viable. That is machine learning. I mean, it's very simple machine learning that's been around for many, many decades. And then once you've done that, you can take it to the next level. You can, instead of using Excel, you can use AWS's machine learning services. And once you've done that, you can take it to the next level and you can try to follow an IPython notebook that you find online. You can go to Kaggle and download some raw data sets there, and you can go to the next level of doing the code yourself. So in terms of what technology to use whatever for you is a viable end-to-end machine learning AI experience.
One of the things that I've heard personally from people, and one of the things they say is, well, I don't have a PhD, and you've got to have a PhD, or I don't have a math background, or something like that. And what would you say to those type of folks who are obviously very intelligent people, very successful in their own way, but not necessarily really strong on math, maybe don't have a PhD, et cetera? What is kind of your answer to that?
When it comes to deep learning, I see a great value in having some graduate level education. That being said, that's not the only way to acquire those skills. But the reason, when you look at UI development, these JavaScript frameworks, a lot of that stuff didn't come out of academia. But with deep learning, it actually did. Those innovations actually did come out of academia. And that's why I think for data scientists, there is recruiters and employers do value having that, being on the very cutting, bleeding edge of where these innovations came from. That being said, with Pluralsight and other services, there are great ways of acquiring those skills. And lots of companies, they're really just figuring out this AI product development thing. And so you might even join a company, and even if there's not any machine learning and AI happening just yet, there's still so much impact that you can have with just analytics. I have this thing that I call the intelligence journey. And when you look at AI, lots of companies simply haven't built out the analytics in the tagging, the usage of their web application or whatever their business is. There's so much opportunity to innovate with just analytics before you even jump to AI. And so when you think about, you can kind of think of your career in the same fashion. Being a data scientist is cool, but you can still have a ton of impact as just doing regular data analysis. And then from there, you kind of can mature and evolve your skill set into data scientists as you build out your data warehouse for analytics use cases. Once you've gotten your data buttoned up, you're going to be a lot more ready and primed to start evolving into AI use cases. So wherever you are in your career there, you just position yourself close to the data, partner with product leaders that can influence the strategy so that you're not just bottlenecked. You've got to, even if it starts as a skunkworks project, it doesn't even have official approval from your management or whatever. Lots of these successful AI initiatives are being born in this type of a way, just by people that want to do this as a passion project, and they build a team around it and work together, and you will learn skills on the job. You don't need to wait for someone to hand that opportunity to you. You can do learning on the side with Pluralsight, and that's how you can use a lean startup approach to your career in AI.
What does your learning path look like? So if something new comes up, like there's a new service or even a new programming language or something else, how do you approach learning that?
I try to learn through experience. I use YouTube videos. I use Pluralsight. But whenever I have a new skill that I want to learn, I just look around me and I try to find an opportunity to do exactly that. For a time, I was interested in learning sales and marketing. And so as a product manager, that's kind of something I start hanging out with the marketing and sales people, like, hey, how can I help you guys out? What challenges are you facing? And I just learn a ton by rubbing shoulders with those types of people. And then if I want to learn more about pricing, they've also had the opportunity to partner with some pricing strategy people. Hey, can I get your advice? I'm thinking of changing the pricing on my product this way or another. So I personally am not the type of passive learner. I still benefit from watching videos, but it's not going to stick with me at all unless I go and do it. And that's my personal recipe for learning.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's exactly what I tell people all the time. Like, take the course, watch the video, read the article, then build something. Like, put it into action immediately, because if you don't put it into action, it all disappears. I've been guilty of that myself. I've taken courses on like iPhone development and tinkered around, and then 6 months later, you can't ask me anything about developing iPhone apps because I forgot, and I didn't go out and apply it and build an actual applications.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've been there myself.
So what cool projects are you working on right now that you could tell us about?
I have a project that I'm working on right now called the Product Intelligence Research Initiative. And I'm collaborating with researchers at different universities here on the West Coast and also in Utah and other places. And we are trying to understand what is the best methodology for creating AI products. We are interviewing product leaders at the companies that are building cutting edge AI products. We're interviewing chief AI officers, directors of analytics, this whole gambit of roles that we've discussed that need to come together to successfully execute in creating intelligent products. And we want to do this research so that it's not a matter of opinion anymore about should you start with a proof of concept or should you start with the design sprint. We want to understand, put hard science around everything that we've talked about in this podcast. And so if you are a creator of an AI product, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jaekob Chenina. The spelling of my first name is a little bit unique, but hopefully you can find me there. And we're looking to network and meet creators of intelligent products. And if you're interested in co-researching with us or just being participating in an interview or survey, this is my big passion project right now. And we are going to help the world figure out what is the best way of creating AI products so that we can accelerate innovation globally.
Awesome. So one last question I have for you, and this is the surprise gotcha question. If you were to name a programming language, what would you name it?
Wow. That is an interesting question. So if I had to name a programming, I'm just going to brainstorm here. I was reading King Arthur with my kids, and King Arthur is pretty hardcore. So maybe I just call it King Arthur. So I think that would stick with people. People are like, hey, coding something in King Arthur, it just kind of creates an interesting visual. So I think that stickiness factor would definitely draw some attention to it, and hopefully it can be just as hardcore and unstoppable as the real King Arthur.
Yeah, ideally.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you for talking with me today.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure, Jeremy.
That was a great talk with Jaekob, and it was fun to learn about AI in daily practice. Thank you for listening to All Hands on Tech. If you like it, please rate us. You can see episode transcripts and more at pluralsight.com/podcast.